Before we get started, a big thank you to all of my supporters over on Patreon and on Twitch, with the Patreon people coming up on screen now. A big thank you to my legendary supporters Mike, Kira, Obi-Wan Kanti, and Shao Quinn. Thank you guys for the support. I really appreciate it. If you would like to help support me and the channel, then you can head over to twitch.tv/mandatoryquest and drop a sub over there. Or you can go over to patreon.com/mandatoryquest and become a Patreon member for some early access to some videos and some behind the scenes stuff. Okay. So then, let's take a look at the Doomstalker then. So I think this is up to level 5. So we'll just briefly go over some of the mechanics and things that Gripe has mentioned. So what did they want to address? The class had a very large 12-card hand size, which was especially problematic at low levels. Agree with that for sure. At level 1, they had only 3 non-loss attacks and 1 realistic loss attack, meaning that you would run out of attack actions well before needing to rest. We know that this was kind of dumb. This character felt super awkward at level 1 with all of the dooms and nothing to play with them. Just felt really awkward. You could fill space with summons, but not everyone wanted to use summons on this class. Many just wanted to play as an archer, and even if you did like the summons, you had few tools to help support them. Meanwhile, the traps had even less support. Very true. There was a very, very weak trap sub-theme on this character before. There were also so many dooms to choose from that many ended up rotting in your hand, especially as a few were so much stronger than the rest. Same problem that the Mind's Weakness had. You know, unfortunately, not every doom was created equally, like not every augment was created equally. So it was a very similar problem to what the Mind Thief had as well. So yeah, these are all problems that I think we can all kind of agree with, and yeah, makes a lot of sense. So the character mat is still under construction, but this is the text, and note that the hand size was changed to 11. I think a lot of people will probably dislike the fact that this has been changed to 11, but what this will do is probably encourage you to actually cycle your dooms a little bit more, rather than maybe kind of keep one out and then basically be like, cool, I'm playing with 11 cards for the most part. It'll encourage you to cycle your dooms a little bit more. It'd be interesting to see what happens to Expose, if Expose even exists, or if there are any kind of like passive burn effects in the game. Certainly makes them a little bit more scary to play like a passive burn on a character when you are going to go down. But 11 still gives you a lot of breathing room to be able to like play a summon or something like that. So yeah, I mean, like, it just makes a lot of sense, I think. And also means that they don't have to make, you know, like so many options at level 1. They can kind of like condense the options a little bit and just make good cards. Yeah. This class was weird. 11, if there were no summons, you'd say put it to 10 instead. But with summons sticking around, 11 is fair. That's a good comment. So you have core actions, dooms, that place your doom token on one enemy within your line of sight. You can only have one enemy with a doom token at a time. You can only have one doom active at a time. If you play a second doom, discard the previous active doom. All this is the same so far. Dooms are not negative conditions and may target any enemy, including bosses and objectives. I think, is that a change? I don't know whether or not you could target objectives before. From memory, I don't know if you could or not. Maybe this is a digital thing, though. Not quite sure about that one. You could not target objectives. Right. I had a feeling that that was the case. Right. So that's changed. That's generally good. Obviously, it's good. Gives you a little bit more play with certain scenarios. I like this change because it means that you're not getting punished because a particular scenario is like, oh yeah, you need to kill these 3 objectives and they have X amount of health, and you just feel a little bit kind of, you feel a little bit muted on your character because of that. So yeah, it's a nice change. Bringing summons to the battlefield is not for everyone. And if you're looking for a simpler experience, you can remain perfectly effective while completely ignoring them. If you do choose to summon forest companions to aid your fight, oh, that's a new thing, you may notice that you cannot easily exert direct control over them. You have some dooms that can help guide them towards important targets and away from enemies that are dangerous to them. Cool. All right, that sounds interesting. We'll take a brief look at perks here, just to kind of see like if there's anything that really stands out, and it will maybe it will affect what we might choose in terms of cards or something. So it's probably a better idea actually to do perks first. So replace one -2 card with 1+0 card. Standard, very good perk. Replace one -1 card with one -1. Angry Face performs an attack 2 range 5 card. That's pretty decent. That's very good, actually. that will then immediately kind of give you just an extra attack, another draw, double attack, basically. That's really cool. I like this one. It's just more attacks. What's wrong with that? Like, it's just like, hey, I get another attack. In a weird way, it's kind of like you do an extra... It's almost like a +2. And it replaces as well, which is really good. You're not making your deck too thick. You're still kind of replacing cards. So essentially, it's like, yeah, you still hit a -1, but then you could just attack the same target again, I guess. That's really, really good. So versatile. In fact, that might be one of the best offensive perks I think I've ever seen, because it's just basically go again. So if you had something like Strengthen, or if they had a Doom on them where you were getting extra bonuses for attacking them and stuff like that, that's like you get to reactivate all of those bonuses. It's pretty good. It's pretty damn good. It actually, like, really synergizes very well with the old Doomstalker. We'll see how... I mean, sure, there will still be a lot of themes, right? But, yeah, that could be one of the strongest offensive perks I've actually ever seen. Yeah, plus you could target something different, right, Sam? Yeah, which is another really good point. So, you know, if you killed it, you could then move on to something else. Replace 2 +0 cards with 2 +1 cards. Just straight up, increasing your average damage. Add 1 +0, grant one of your... summons adjacent to the target, +0 attack card. A little bit more situational. Obviously, if you're not playing summons, you wouldn't want this. A little bit more situational, but still quite nice. Because, again, you're going to just get an extra attack, depending on what your summon is. Presumably, though, you want a melee summon here, because they need to be adjacent to the target that you're attacking. So you're probably looking to use this with a melee summon, but we would have to wait and see what we get there. But that would be probably what we're doing. Add 1 +3 attack card. I'm not usually a massive fan of these big swing ones, but they're fine. Add 1 stun rolling card. That's pretty neat. Always useful to have. Ignore negative scenario effects and add 1 rolling +1. That's pretty good. Especially for just getting early. Just get rid of the scenario effects. Always like it now that they paired this ignore negative scenario effects with a... like a rolling or like just some sort of bonus to give you here. They were so boring when all they did was just ignore scenario effects. So I'm so glad that they started to pair them with just little incremental things that'll be better. At the start of each scenario, you may reveal the top card of each monster ability card deck. Very thematic. Quite cool for like a scouting type character. Makes a lot of sense. Really does play into the theme of the character very, very well. That's a really interesting one. I think in certain scenarios, that's huge, right? Because you could have basically perfect knowledge for the first turn of every scenario. It's really hard to, like, judge the value of that. Because obviously sometimes you'll look at it and the enemies just won't be doing anything that bothers you. Or you'll be going into a scenario and perhaps, like, it won't really matter what they do because of the way the scenario is constructed in some means or way. But... interestingly, that you always start with the top card of each monster ability card deck. So, if I'm understanding that correct, guys, if you're starting a scenario, and let's say your first room has in it Bandit Guards and Bandit Archers, right? But you also have, as a listed monster type, let's say, I don't know, a Priest, right? Even though that enemy is not currently in play, so therefore you would not be drawing ability cards for them. My understanding here would be that that card is still revealed. So you would know the first time that you come across that enemy for the first time, and so they, spawn in. At that point, you would know what they're doing, right? It's correct. You get the top card for each monster, not just those in room 1. This perk is massive. Yeah, that seems like way better. For 1 tick as well. It's a fairly inconsequential perk to get. It's like 1 tick. I mean, who cares about 1 tick? If you're starting this character, you'll already start with a one perk, right? Because this is a retirement like character. So you're going to get a perk. Wow. Yeah, that's super strong. Really, really interesting. I think... That's like an almost must get. Very unique. Gives you so much like flexibility and like knowledge. Like knowledge is like a lot in this game. It's so much. You think about how many times you've got off to a rough start in a scenario because on the first turn, like, for example, you go into a room full of cultists, and cultists are in this game, and they have summon abilities. And the first time you're like, right, we're starting this room off, and it's got cultists. What are they doing? Like, even if the cultists aren't in that room, you can see that if you open that door and there's a cultist in there, it's going to summon. So you know you need to, like, run into that room and, like, be very proactive. It gives you so much information on, like, the couple of troublesome enemies that when you start a scenario, like, oh, man, if these guys draw this card on the first turn, I don't know what I'm going to do. But then you know that they're going to do it, so therefore you can kind of adjust accordingly to your plan or your starting positions, right? Like if you're given it like the kind of, hey, you can start in any of these 6 hexes. Okay. Especially if you're playing like a 2-player or something like that, you have a lot of space to start in, or wherever it's 4 hexes. You got a lot of space to start in. That would be like, okay, actually I'm going to start here because then these guys aren't going to have range to perform their attack against me. Like that's huge. Yeah, I think it's like a must-have perk. I would be getting this perk first for sure. Whenever you long rest, after you recover your cards from your discard pile, you may play 1 card from your hand to perform a doom action of the card. It's kind of encouraging you to long rest more and long rest in rooms that have enemies, like active enemies in it at that point in time. This to me feels like it maybe could have been the 1 tick rather than the, the 2 ticks. I don't know. This perk, in your opinion, is mediocre on the Arch build and busted good on the Summon build. I mean, I guess we have to see what the dooms are first and foremost. But to me, this seems like long resting when you have summons. I get that because then your summons get a turn, like, so it's not so bad, especially if the summons are kind of safe. Like long resting when there are enemies on the board, but you have summons in play, it's kind of fine because they have stuff to do. You're still going to get some value out of your turn. Also, when you have an odd number of cards in hand, I can see that this would work very well for stamina purposes. I mean, it's hard to say without seeing the dooms. I feel like this isn't quite as good as the other one. I'm quite surprised that this is 2 ticks and this is 1 tick. But, I mean, this is kind of like playing a card for free, which has traditionally been very busted. So, kind of understandable. On each of your summons turns, you may have them skip their turn and instead perform a move plus 0, treating you as their focus. Well, that to me seems like an absolute essential perk if you're playing a some kind of build. Like that is got to be essential for if you're playing a summoner, right? Because in theory, you can do this just to kind of rescue them occasionally. I mean, if there's no enemies, they're going to kind of do this anyway because of the new rules. Presumably, if they're using the same rules as we had in Frosthaven and in Jaws of the Lion as well. Might be better in the later rooms. Whistle them back. Yeah, I mean, it depends on what the summons are. If they're melee summons, which it looks like they may well be, there's some sort of inclination here that they may well be melee summons. If that's the case, then yeah, it's starting to look like maybe it would be. All of the summons can be revealed to melee. Interesting. Okay. Masteries, kill 20 doomed enemies. Well, I mean, that's a simple mastery. That's about as simple as it gets, right? Not going to achieve it in a single scenario, most likely. Probably not going to achieve it in 2. Depends on what kind of scenarios you do. It's probably going to end up being like 3 to 4, probably, for the average player, I would think. There may well be an opportunity to do it in 2, depending on the scenarios that you have. But I would imagine this would probably end up being 3 or 4, which is pretty reasonable. 3 to 5 sounds likely. Yeah, I agree with that. It's a nice, simple mastery. In a single round, you and one of your summons must perform a combined total of 6 or more. Okay, so if you think about us doing a standard attack is 1, and the summon doing attack is 2. So you're already at 2. So you're only trying to find 4 more attacks, right? And presumably we'll have some cards that will allow us to maybe like go attack. Like maybe we have a card that's like attack. We'll have a look at them. Or we have like, for example, this, right? That gives a summon an extra attack. We have this, which gives us an extra attack. So there are definitely ways to kind of get that number up. So you only need to find another 4. So maybe we can find 2 to 3 from our card abilities, maybe. And then maybe we flip something. This is going to be an interesting one to keep your eye on. Maybe there will be a way to just immediately get it. Just, hey, yeah, you just got it. But we'll check it out when we get to the cards. Overall, though, great perks. Everything seems, yeah, I mean, it seems great. So let's have a look at the cards then. So first up, we have Rain of Arrows. On the next 4 deaths of a doomed enemy, while there is another enemy within range 4 of you, perform an attack 3, range 4. So this is obviously an amazing way to get that mastery then. This is an easy way of doing it, right? If there's some way for you to like kill an enemy, then potentially you know, there's like the bouncing doom build, right? Then you transfer the doom onto the new one, then you kill this, then that's doom, then you kill something else. Like this, you could, I guess, Magical Christmas Land, try and burn through all of these charges in one turn. Seems like it could be possible, maybe. Kind of interesting. But yeah, certainly you can already see that, yeah, there's some opportunities here. We'll need some other cards to make it work, but you can see like already you can see a structure of how it could be done. In terms of how good this is, I mean, this seems very good to me. It also only triggers while there is another enemy within range 4 of you, which is super nice. You know, in previous iterations of abilities like this, sometimes you would miss out on the extra attacks if there was no enemy around. So it's really nice that you just kind of get to only trigger it if you can use it in some way. Seems like a very good burn ability to chuck down, and an easy way to like help finish off a room. You can just like start kind of like machine gunning enemies down very quickly. Yeah, I like this a lot. The Rain of Arrows was a bottom ability before that I believe gave you... It was a Doom before, right? It's a Doom here as well, but I felt like it was pretty good Doom. I think it gave you like extra damage or something. I can't remember. Or you and all allies gain something on the target, but yeah. 9 initiative, Doom. Add PS2 to all your attacks targeting this enemy. Situational, but just very useful when you need it, right? It's a Doom that when you're in a certain scenario and you see in that scenario list, hey, there's these guys, like there's living spirits in this scenario. Okay, cool. I'm going to bring it. Oh, there's flame demons in this scenario. Okay, great. I'm going to bring Rain of Arrows. That'll be probably one of my best Dooms this scenario. So it's like, it feels like it's a very easy one to just pick when you need it. And obviously the top is great as well. So already good. Used to be +2 damage against doomed enemies. Cool. You know, I thought it was something like that. Race to the Grave. So this was probably the best. Oh, I said the best, but it was probably the most well-liked Doom back in the day. Summon Vicious Jackal on the top here, which is a 4 health, 3 move, 2 attack melee summon, but it has Retaliate 1 and Wound on it. It's kind of interesting. 4 health and Retaliate 1 is a little bit odd. I'm interested to see how we could maybe get more value out of that. But with only 4 health, I mean, at level 1, it's going to work. You might get like 1 or 2 triggers of the Retaliate out of there. If you're lucky, maybe you can do some healing or something. So it'll be interesting to see like other cards and see how they develop here. Because on the face of it, this will fall off very, very quickly. But, you know, it could go in and get some wound damage in, which is nice too. So the Retaliate is kind of like the slightly weird one. I guess thematically it works quite well because, you know, similar to Hounds, you know, Jackals, Hounds, I guess same kind of like family. They have Retaliate as a theme in Gloomhaven, so kind of makes sense. Might kind of fall off. We'll have to see if we got some more things to combo with it, but it's not a bad summon by any means. 75 initiative is decent late initiative. Not super late though, so it's kind of like in that kind of like, it's late, but it's not like maybe late enough to guarantee. Doom, this enemy suffers 1 damage at the start of each of his turns. This used to be 2 damage. I think that we'll probably see, you know, this kind of makes sense because Race to the Grave was one of the most popular ones. And also if you have a look like PS2 here, quite often you didn't even need to run a PS2 Doom, because realistically you were doing 2 damage with Race to the Grave every turn anyway. So why would you bother running this if you had something like this, right? It kind of did the work for you. So I quite like the fact that they've now kind of like reduced this and, you know, give a PS Doom like this. Kind of makes sense, right? So next up we got Gutshot. Well, this is a new name of a card at least. Gutshot wasn't one of the originals. So we've got attack 2 here, range 4. Add wound and gain 1 XP if the target is doomed. Nice. Easy, right? It's only an attack 2 though, so that's not great, but presumably we'll have some other Dooms that could do a bit more. We've only really seen the PS2 Doom that massively benefits from this. So an attack 2 with PS2 and wound. I mean, that's probably going to do enough damage to a living spirit, especially like early levels, low levels. or to like, you know, the odd enemy that just has like one shield, or perhaps has like an ability that gives them an additional shield. And you gain 1 XP if the target is doomed. So this could be just a nice earner of XP for you as well as you go on. It's a very reliable attack. It's decent for sure. Again, it's going to really depend on these dooms, right? And we've seen one pretty good one, I think, with the Pierce. This one as well is obviously good as well. You know, you put this on them and wound, they're kind of taking 2 damage at the start of their turn. So you've kind of built your own race to the grave there. You kind of built your own race to the grave eventually in a backwards way of doing it from 1.0. 21 initiative, and then you got move 4 on the bottom here. Great movement. This character, if I remember rightly, kind of struggled quite a lot with movement to begin with, and then we got a couple of very strong moves as we leveled up. But I remember level 1 being particularly barren for moves. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, obviously this is sort of this is a good top action, so maybe we want to be using it for the top and not for the bottom. But, you know, it's promising to see a little bit more move. I think we had, I think it was like Moment of Peace or something was the move that we always used to use. Because you could also like put a bless on it, which was pretty broken. Detonation. This is this looks like a returning card, or a returning name of a card at least. Attack 4, target 2, range 4, 2 XP and a burn. That's 8 damage, and probably a little bit more if you've got dooms and things out, I would imagine, or if there are other ways to kind of like increase this in some way. I mean, for a burn, that's a pretty decent burn, to be honest. Range 4 as well is massive. Absolutely massive. Yeah, I like it. 8 initiative. It's nice. Very nice early initiative. Doom. When this enemy dies, all enemies adjacent to the hex it occupied suffer 2 damage. I think that's the same as it was before. Or at least it's very similar to what Detonation used to do. I used to really, really like Detonation. I think it was a really fun Doom. Used to be 3. Okay, so it's a little bit less. It's been slightly nerfed, but again, it was one of the stronger ones. Kind of makes sense. Murderous Stalker, attack 6, range 5. If this attack kills an enemy, gain 1 XP. And you may play 1 card from your hand or discard power to perform a doom action of the card. Hey, that's pretty neat. It is a loss. I mean, it's basically a free card play from your... I mean, you wouldn't want to do it from your hand. I think you would want to do it from your discard pile. But then, I mean, if you just use this when you need to use it, right? You might not be able to perfectly plan it out. But free card play is a free card play. 13 initiative, but move 3 with jump is very good on a very good early initiative. So this is probably pretty playable as just a move 3 with jump to begin the game anyway. And then maybe you look for an opportunity to get some really good value out of the top of this. It's a good burn action. You just need to time it right, I think. Moment's Peace. This is one we want. This is what we wanted to do. Loot 1. Reveal the top card of 1 monster within range 5's ability card deck. Okay. So it's similar, like going back to this kind of scouting theme. Reveal the top card of 1 monster within range 5's ability card deck. It's really interesting because like a perk, just giving us that like at the beginning of a scenario, just being able to like, hey, just start with the top card turned over, is very unique and really interesting, and gives you basically an edge for no cost except for the perk that you've spent, right? The perk point that you've spent. There's no other cost to it. Whereas this would be, okay, you are playing a card, and if you are looting mid-scenario, but then between rooms, this could be kind of interesting. Like, okay, the route, like, mostly the enemies are dead. Great. I actually would have quite liked this on an early initiative to do it before the enemy died. Because, like, in a weird way, I would like to, like, loot, then put, like, Race to the Grave on them, and then they die from the 1 damage or something. I don't know. Like, the timing of this, I'm not 100% sold on right now, but I feel like it could be quite useful. And it's adding more value to a loot action, which is always good. I mean, at the worst case scenario, this is a top loot action, so you can move and loot in a single turn very efficiently, which is going to be, like, you know, it's just good anyway. Because it's basically just maybe make sure you efficiently loot. Just came in. This is powerful. Scrying with your experience with the Diviner. Yeah, I mean, the guess thing is with the Diviner is that you could actually rearrange the cards. This does not have any rearranging, right? 88 initiative, yeah. I don't know. I mean, maybe you do want this late. I feel like you want this either early or late. So they've gone late here, so that's fine. At least it's not some really awkward 40 or 50 initiative. So I'm happy that it's gone one of the 2 ways. Move 3. Heal 2, target 1 of your summons or self at range 1. That's nice. That's definitely playable. That's quite a decent buff to the ability. To now be able to target one of your summons. I guess it was just range 1 target anyway, was it? I can't really remember. All I remember is that we used to just have this as like move 3, heal self 1, and I used to chuck a bless enhancement on it, which was kind of broken. It was move 2, heal self 2. This is much better. Well, this is much better, possibly, except it doesn't have a enhancement dot to be able to add bless. So it depends on the way that you view that ability. I would say move 2, heal 2, and bless is pretty damn good on a character that always perennially had advantage. So we just constantly have advantage. Yeah, was pretty good. But yes, in terms of like as a base action without any enhancements considered, yes, this is definitely better. So the hunt begins. So last card in this row is attack 2, range 4, add +2 attack and gain 1 damage if the target is undamaged. Okay, so this is like it used to be just called like fresh kill or something, wasn't it called? This effect or something like that. I mean, this is great. This is an attack 4, and ideally you want to chuck a doom on before you do this as well to get some extra value out of that as well. So yeah, I mean, that's super good. So the bottom of this card is your summons add +1 to all of their attacks targeting this enemy. Your summons focus on this enemy. Oh, that's a nice change, huh? That's a really cool change. So I think we had something that kind of gave us +1 anyway, or we had like a you and all your allies get +1, or just your allies get +1 and you didn't get the +1, if I remember rightly. So this is kind of like a bit of a change, but the summons focus on this enemy is a really interesting twist, because one of the problems that summons have always had in Gloomhaven is that they can sometimes end up wandering around, not really having much direction, or going after enemies that you're like, oh man, I really don't want you to attack that enemy. I want you to go over here and do this. You know, it's quite common for people to house rule the game where they control summons or they change some of the elements of the game because of that. So this is a really, really interesting change, I think, and really actually massively changes a summon playstyle, because suddenly you have that guarantee of, yeah, they're going to attack this. You can stop them from attacking that retaliate enemy that just happens to be the closest enemy. Like, actually, guys, I want you to focus on this enemy that doesn't have retaliate, please. And then they will run off and they will go and attack that, rather than going to attacking the annoying one that's going to then go and get themselves killed. So this is like super, super good. The hunt begins used to give +2, did it? Well, I'll be. All summoned allies. Now, there you go. There it is. It's very similar, but it just basically adds the focus part is the most important part here, and that is a huge change. A huge change that will really improve the quality of life of the summon build. Okay, solid bow. So attack 3, range 5. That's pretty much unchanged, I think, but apart from maybe the range has gone up. I don't know if it was range 5 before. It might have only been like range 4, but I remember this card basically being that. 54 initiative is unusable. Doom, whenever one or more of your summons, whenever you or one of your summons damages this enemy, you may perform a heal to self or one ally adjacent to this enemy. Ooh, okay. So this is a way for you to maybe get the Jackal to work a little bit better, right? So we were saying like, okay, we need like 4 health isn't a lot. Like this retaliate 1 isn't really gonna trigger. I mean, the problem is it's still going to die like once you get into the higher levels. It's going to struggle a lot, but at least at level 1 or maybe even level 2, there's some kind of ability to keep it alive once or twice. I mean, we'll have to maybe see some more summons. We've only seen 1 summon so far, so there's got to be some more here. I mean, this could also work quite well if you have like a tank that you really want to do, right? It's kind of interesting. I like it. It's a hard one to like 100% judge right now. I think we need to see if we have any more summons. Like if we had like a big bear summon or something that just had like a chunk of health, like didn't really do much damage or anything, but it just attacks a little bit, like maybe it has like an attack 1 but it has like 8 health and shield 1, then suddenly we've got a tank right there, and you could just like focus on healing it. Foot snare, attack 2, range 4, add immobilize and gain 1 XP if the target is doomed. That's really, really neat. Immobilize is it's really funny because when I had that stream with Silver on Friday, we were talking a little bit about the different kind of effects in the game and how he felt like immobilize wasn't particularly strong. And I think that says a lot about someone whose experience of Gloomhaven, like, 1.0 first edition, is the amount of disarm and stun that's available in that game means that Immobilize looks bad by comparison a lot of the time. But Immobilize is quite often top tier control. It can be used so against certain enemy types. And it is going to be probably one of the more kind of de facto kind of go-to control that's going to be more useful. I've definitely been using it a lot more in Frosthaven than I did in Gloomhaven. So I feel like Footsnare, this seems really, really good. It seems very viable. 14 initiative is also excellent for something like this because you can immediately go, okay, that's the enemy I'm going to doom and immobilize this turn just to stop them from being able to attack or do something. You got immobilize range 1 and then move 3. So again, this is a really nice way of potentially the bottom is a great initiative as well for this bottom ability because you could go late, move towards an enemy, then go early, go on 14, immobilize them, run away, then maybe attack them or somebody else as well. So basically, you've got 2 easy ways to really activate the immobilize on this card, depending on your playstyle. Whenever a doomed enemy dies, instead of moving any dooms on the target to your discard pile, you may discard this card to perform the doom actions of the cards, targeting an enemy within range 3 of the hex where the enemy died. Okay, so it's moving dooms. It's just basically moving dooms, but it's you play it and you move and you get to move dooms. Permanent, but it's non-burn. Okay, so you can choose to discard it at some point. Good thing to do between rooms? Yeah, quite possibly. What's neat about this is that you're getting it at level 1 rather than getting it at a higher level, and it's like a passive burn that you have to just burn a card for. Now there's actually like a little bit of decision-making process of, okay, we want to do this, but we're going to play it. It is an 11 initiative move 4, though, on the bottom, which is probably the most exciting part of this card. Despite what this does, I feel like this is obviously very good. I guess what you could do, though, you could really, really easily combo this with Rain of Arrows, right? On the next 4 deaths of a doomed enemy, while there's another enemy within range 4 of you, perform attack 3. So let's say you kill a doomed enemy. Then you may discard this card to perform. So you can at least get another trigger of that out of it. So essentially, it works with Rain of Arrows top quite nicely. I think for the most part, this is going to be a move 4 for most of the time, but that's good. That's fine. We need them. It's jumping doom at level 1. Yeah, which is not a build that I was like massively keen on. I've tried it a few times. I never really got that maximum value out of it that I was really looking for. It always just felt like I was playing a lesser build on the character. It always kind of felt that way to me. But if it's been fixed for the most part, then I mean having access to it at level 1 is pretty huge. Although of course it's not the full effect of what you got on the other card. It's like yeah, you have to play this, and then so you kind of have to spend a turn playing this, and obviously it happens once, then this gets discarded, and then you play again. So you are kind of giving up a little bit of your economy because you're playing a card to do it every single round. But if you have some really good dooms, and I guess the thing is that if you have a lot of summons out, maybe your summons are just the ones like doing all the damage. So maybe something like this works really well because then you just kind of continually maybe bounce the fresh kill one around, right? You just bounce this one around, maybe. It's like maybe a cool idea. Hidden Danger, summon Green Snake. We have 5 health, move 3, attack 2, unaffected by difficult terrain. Again, kind of thematic to snakes. Snakes did have jump. I don't know whether or not they still have jump. So this is kind of thematic to it. This summon is considered to be last in initiative order when determining monster focus. That's an interesting wrinkle. It is always going to be considered last. So if you have another melee character in your party, or you have another summon that maybe is a bit tankier than the green snake, then this could actually stay alive for quite a long time. It's going to get itself into interesting positions. Instead of maybe spending a lot of time going round a difficult terrain, it can just go straight through it to get to an enemy. That may end up being, though, that it becomes... that because of this, it actually gets closer to enemies before other summons do. I feel like this is the perfect summon to play alongside. Like if you had someone playing a tank who's like playing some super tanky frontline character, then you could probably pretty comfortably play the green snake and it'll be fine. The only problem is that when you get down to like multiple target enemies and things like that, unfortunately this kind of thing kind of falls off a cliff when you're against certain enemies that are doing like AoE patterns or multi-targets. Like, unfortunately, it's usually not enough. Doom is add +1 attack to all your attacks targeting this enemy. Right, this is a nice and simple one. This will be the one that you want for multi attacks. Obviously, again, this is like one build, other build, kind of like archer build, summon build. It makes sense that they're the other way. This I think is this is a little bit worse potentially than Race to the Grave, unless of course you're attacking multiple times. Like, that's the key here. So if you were to go for those perks, if you were to get that perk that allows you to attack again, then obviously this is the kind of thing you want to be playing. So you can see where the kind of builds are starting to separate a little bit. Like, you have the one where, hey, then your summon can attack again. Okay, well then you probably want to play the Doom that gives your summons buffs. Hey, but then you take the perk that you get to attack again. Okay, well then I want to be playing this particular Doom. So you can kind of get the feeling of like what Doom wants to be played when. And it also, I mean, it's kind of signposted a little bit here by having a summon on the top of this. Which is quite clear indication. Oh, you're playing a summon build, you might want to play the top of this. Or you're playing a non-summon build, you probably want to play the bottom of this, right? The bottom Doom looks fairly abusable, given the right kind of abilities and draws from your deck. Give chase. Doom. This is a top Doom, which is interesting. Have not seen one of those ever, apart from maybe... Was the burn one that allowed you to get double Doom one? Was the bouncing Doom originally like a top action? I don't know. But anyway, it's rare to have a Doom on the top. Your summons add +2 move and jump to all their move abilities. Your summons focus on this enemy. Oh, okay. Well, now you can see why we might want a double Doom build of some sort, right? If you could do this and give them +1, that would be huge. Maybe that's coming up later on at high levels. But I like the idea that you can kind of like give this to your summons and just allow them to immediately get into the action. Maybe play late as well. The only awkward thing being here that you go after your summons. So that means you kind of have to wait around for them to kind of kick in. Very good at just picking out maybe a weak enemy at the back of a room or something and just getting them in there. I like the top of this a lot. Again, it's a little bit more flexibility for your summon build here. 80 initiative move 4 is also fine. You either want like a late initiative or an early initiative with a move paired. It's fine. Feral Aid. Attack 2. Range 4. Add +2 attack and gain 1 XP if the target is adjacent to one of your summons. Okay. Well, this seems quite good. In fact, very good. Attack 4. Ooh. This is excellent. This is really, really excellent. I mean, what summon? I mean, I guess we're talking about the snake. Is the snake the most viable summon, like, early game? It kind of is. Because, like, this could be enough. Like, maybe this is good enough to kind of keep it around? Because my concern with the Jackal is that it just kind of ends up getting killed randomly. And it kind of, like, sucks. I feel like the summon build looks more fun right now. 35 initiative, attack 4, range 4. If the target of the attack ability has 4 or fewer hit points, grant one of your summons move 3, attack 3. The attack may only target the target of the Doomstalker's attack. That's kind of neat too. Kind of finishes it off. And you get like this kind of interesting kind of move, which could have some, kind of like positioning benefits of getting him closer. Or getting him away from something else. So there's some benefit there to that as well. I mean, the good thing about this card is that it's basically like, hey, if you're playing the summon build, you want this card. Like, if you're playing with a summon, you want this card. If you're not playing with a summon, you 100% do not want this card. So, like, I mean, as far as X cards go, that's pretty excellently, like, on the nose of, like, yeah, that's what it's going to be. Both builds are fantastic, but the summon build is your favorite build in the entire game. Definitely looks more fun for an experienced player. It looks great. Yeah, I mean, for me, the summons look more fun right now, the summon build. But again, maybe that is because it's a little bit like playing something new rather than like, because this almost does feel like you're playing a new character versus like the Doom build will just be, hey, we've kind of rebalanced and reworked a few elements of how that build works. Like, for the most part, you will get the same general feeling. And that's not to say that it's like not fun to play. Like, if you've never played it, it's a lot of fun to play. But if you've played it 5 or 10 times, like I have, and I'm sure a lot of other people have, then the interest will start to move to more towards the new and shiny way of playing. And then we got our final card here, which is Fierce Fighter. Summon Battle Boar, 7 health, move 2, attack 2. When attacking, ignore retaliate. Nice. Very nice. Means that potentially we could actually use that heal one to actually heal, which is kind of like what you want, rather than being like, oh, it's there to soak retaliate damage. But that's pretty good. I think the move 2 is a little bit restrictive. It's interesting that on a lot of summons nowadays, they've kind of increased that movement value up to 3, but it remains 2 here. It's got a bit more health maybe to compensate, and of course this. I guess the problem with this is that it won't apply in a lot of scenarios, but in some it might. So this could be like the perfect X card type thing where you wait to see what enemies you're facing, check to see if they have retaliate. If they do, that particular scenario, bring the Battle Boar. Perhaps it's not the one that you want every single time, but it is one that you will play when the situation kind of suits it well. 78 initiative, and the bottom is gain advantage on all your attacks this round. So here's the here's the big one for the archer build, because I mean obviously like getting advantage on an attack 4, and if they have a doom up that gives you an additional +1 as well, this was always pretty decent. And the value of this has probably only gone up. The only reason why the value of this wasn't like seen was because expose exists, and expose doesn't exist anymore. Then perhaps this gets even more value. What was your favorite summon? Very reliable at level 1, you should say. Interesting. Because for me, like, it feels like perhaps it would get left behind. But then I guess we do have things like give chase, and perhaps there's enough like stuff like that to actually kind of increase the movement enough. And so it's not so much of a problem. Or of course you got that perk where you can move them towards you instead of taking an action. Like, so maybe there's enough kind of like, extra things you can do that would really kind of make it actually so the movement's not that bad. Cool. Well, I think at level 1, there's certainly a lot of really good options here. You can see that they've made a very concerted effort to make summons much more viable. So there's actually like a summon build here at level 1 that actually looks really fun to try and play. The kind of Doom build looks relatively, I would say it's relatively unchanged. Just had its figures kind of changed a little bit, but for the most part it looks relatively the same. The big difference though is that there is less of the Dooms, and there is, more viable just attacks. So they've just kind of like smoothed out that kind of distribution a bit better at level 1, and then kind of made it so that the Dooms are all kind of equally viable in different situations and will want to be swapped around a little bit more. So you don't feel like, oh man, my best Doom is in my discard and I don't want to play any of these Dooms in my hand. Like, you'll probably always have a fairly decent Doom to play on an enemy. It's a general like smoothing of that balance of that build, but the summon build actually now kind of exists where it didn't before, which is cool. All right, so let's take a look then, shall we, at the level 2 to 5 cards. All right, so here we go then. So level 2, we have Relentless Offensive, attack 2, range 4. Grant one of your summons an attack +0. This attack ability must target the target of the Doomstalker's attack ability. 1 XP. That's fine, because I mean you're going to probably be trying to gang up, so that seems okay. I guess the only problem here is if you kill it, but then if an enemy is dead, then you've kind of achieved what you wanted to anyway. So I mean, well done. It's kind of like fine. I mean, this is basically an attack and attack. This is another way to get that mastery a little bit easier, right? This is kind of like another way that the mastery thing can be done. Yeah, I mean, this seems pretty great. It's only a small attack from you, and considering that most of the time you're going to be like, your Dooms are going to play into your summons rather than you. I guess you could do the heal one, because that's when you or your summon attacks the target, right? So you could get like heal 4. So this could be an attack 2, range 4, and then you could heal 2, and then the summon can attack and then heal another 2. That's pretty cool. Like, that's a really good amount of heal, right? The bottom of this is 63 initiative, and it is grant one of your summons, move +0, attack +0, move +0, then attack +0. So basically, just summon gets to take. It's almost like basically the summon gets to take 2 turns. Really. So it works really well with the Jackal, actually. Super well with the Jackal. In fact, you could even like go for the double burn on a turn, like play Jackal, then do this to just grant it like a move to attack and then get like a wound on something, move and attack something else and get another wound down. So yeah, it works super well with any kind of summon that has an innate ability already embedded. So the only one we've seen so far is the Jackal because it has wound. Obviously the other guys had like other things that they did, but they weren't relating to their own attacks. And in terms of burn actions, it's not bad at all. Of course, if you have like the +1 Doom out as well, potentially this could be like attacking that thing with Doom and getting a +1 buff as well. Slam dunk, if you're playing a summon build, this is what you want. It's very clear signposting that this is what you want. Absolutely no question about it, really. Dual shot top is an attack 2, target 2, range 5. That's a very, very good value attack. Basically it's 4 damage across 2 targets and at range 5, which is massive. That's basically the whole room. Means that you're always going to be able to land it. It's a little bit of a low value attack, but hopefully you have a Doom on one of those 2 that you're attacking. So that's at least fairly good from that perspective. So it should be pretty decent. This should be a little bit more than an attack 2. It should hopefully be a little bit better than that. 52 initiative is miserable, but 63 was also pretty miserable. You gain advantage on all of your attacks targeting this enemy. That's Doom. When this enemy dies, shuffle 1 curse card into the monster attack modifier deck. Ooh, so that's again a very tasty Doom. Very, very tasty Doom for you trying to attack enemies. In fact, what's really interesting is you kind of want to use this like just before they're going to die, right? You kind of have like a Doom up on one enemy and you're kind of attacking them. They get down to a very low amount of health and you go, okay, great. Chuck this Doom on them, kill them. You get advantage so you don't miss. So you can kind of guarantee a kill. Kill them, get the curse in, move on to the next enemy. I think that's like really probably what you want to do here. I feel like, I mean, of course you could just chuck it on a boss and just get constant advantage, which with the character with an attack modifier deck as strong as this could be very good. But also I feel like just trying to maybe be a little bit clever and putting it on an enemy, the turn before you get to do that kind of killing blow and you kind of guarantee the killing blow seems pretty cool too. So I mean, like dual shot is also a really super good card from the perspective of if you're playing this archer build. I mean, it gives you another very usable Doom. It gets you another really good top attack. It's fairly obvious which card you go for depending on what build you're playing here, right? Level 2 here, straight away, you already have a very clear kind of like, right, what you're going to do. You're going to go this way or you're going to go that way, right? This is quite a clear choice at level 2. Right, which of the 2 builds you want to play? So Walking Bastion is level 3. So Summon Staunch Garalev. You got 8. I don't know what a Garalev is. What is a Garalev? Is it like is it a bird? Is it a bird? I have no idea what that is. Is it a real thing? I'm assuming it's like a big ostrich. That's what I'm thinking it is. I'm thinking it's a big flightless bird. It's an animal that only exists in Haven. Okay. I'm assuming it's like a big flightless bird. That's what I'm envisioning here. When you summon this summon, it gains ward. Whenever you long rest, the summon gains ward. Okay. PS3, move to attack to 8 health. That's pretty nice. That PS3. Whoa. I mean, it must have some. Okay, maybe it's not a bird because otherwise it would be like. I mean, maybe talons like PS beak. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe this is more like, I don't know. What would have PS? Something sharp with teeth. I don't know. But yeah, I think this is okay as a summon. I mean, it's actually pretty well costed. It's pretty aggressively costed. You got 8 health, which is great. The move 2 is a little bit slow, but as we sort of said, there seems to be some tricks that we have in our bag to be able to increase movement or at least ease the movement problems of summons. So maybe not so much of a big deal. Attack 2 and the PS3 is massive here because the attack 2 might look a little bit underwhelming, but the PS3 basically means it's going to land which is great. You just need to not draw poorly. So any way for you to be able to increase your attack value or anything like that is going to be super relevant. So, or advantage and things like that you could maybe grant to the summon, stuff like that will go down really, really well with this. At the bottom is a Doom. Your summons focus on this enemy. After one of your summons performs an attack targeting this enemy, triggering no more than once each round, grant that summon an attack 1 PS2. This attack must target the doomed enemy. Okay. So this is like a soul summon type thing. This is pretty neat as well. It's basically just an extra attack. You can see how that milestone must be pretty easy to get, actually, once you get to a certain point. I like it. The summon is, it feels like it's quite a reliable, like, build around me type summon. Like, it gains ward when it comes in, right? Which, for those who don't know, ward is basically half damage the next time you take damage. Not very good against things like, you know, that do small amounts of damage incrementally, but can be very, very good against, you know, a big attack from an enemy. With 8 health as well, let's say you get attacked, you know, enemy attacks you for 4, that's going to go down to 2. So then suddenly, you know, you're still in good standing. And when you long rest, you get it again, which means you can kind of reset it for the next room. Hopefully heal it up and reset it. This does feel like a summon that could be like you play it early and you keep it alive. And it could be fairly easy to keep alive. In your opinion, the top summon is a perfect backup summon. Drop it first if there is a shield and drop it later if your first summon dies. Most of the times you get to use the bottom as long as possible. Yeah, that's true. The bottom is so good that you probably do want to try and get at least a couple of rest cycles out of it before dropping it. But the PS3 is really good. I mean, certain scenarios, this will just clean house, right? I guess that's the thing. Certain scenarios, this will absolutely clean house. Swift Trickery is the other card. So attack 2, range 4, add +2 attack and gain 1 XP if the target is doomed. 10 initiative, very nice. Move 5 on the bottom. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So yeah, I think Swift Trickery, this looks exactly the same, I think, as it used to be, or at least very similar to what Swift Trickery used to be. It's either exactly the same or it's been slightly changed. Maybe this is now a move 5 when it wasn't before. I'm not quite sure if it was. You don't see how anyone could skip Swift Trickery in any build. I think that's a decent observation to make for 2 reasons, really. First one being that obviously the early initiative is very attractive. Yes, you need a mix of early and late initiative. We all know that. But early initiative is always attractive to players because they can just go early, kill it before it gets to act, yada, yada, yada. It's just the game is a little bit simpler by playing that way. But the thing is that this is also a move 5, which is just excellent. Like, you just don't get move 5s very often. So it's a huge amount of movement. And then the top is going to work regardless of what build you're playing, really. Like, it really is. Because you could be playing a summon build. And unless you're like super, super hardcore summon build, you're still going to have dooms on enemies, right? Because you need to have the dooms on the enemies because that's what buffs the summons a lot of the time. So you're always going to have an enemy that is doomed anyway. So essentially, this is an attack 4 and 1 XP for you most of the time. And it's a move 5, which is going to be super valuable at certain points as well. So I can absolutely see that, you know, I think one of the problems that they have is that the fact that the dooms are the middle ground here, right? The doom is the thing that kind of links this character all the way through. If you're playing the summon build, great. There'll be a couple of dooms that only really work for you, but there will still be dooms involved in what you do. And if you're playing the archer build, you will also be playing dooms. And yes, there will be specific dooms that will mainly only work for you or will be better for you. But you are still using dooms. So whenever anything uses the word, oh, attack a doomed enemy, do this to a doomed enemy, blah, 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 it's going to link the 2 builds. And you get a point where you get like, well, actually, now we're just talking about like a value proposition of what each card can do. And yeah, I can absolutely see an argument where, hey, having a reliable attack 4, range 4, move 5 on 10 initiative, I like that regardless of what I'm playing, right? I think that is a very fair observation. I feel like this is a very good summon and a very good summon ability. So absolutely, from my perspective, is trying to like find interesting routes of play. Walking Bastion to me is the much more exciting card, a much more interesting card to play. But I absolutely can see like you still playing a summon build and using Swift Trickery. Like, this is not necessarily going to be I mean, we'll see. There might be a summon later on where actually this bottom Doom just makes it insane. We'll wait and see. I mean, we might not even get to see because we only get up to like level 5, right? But there is a level here where, yeah, this could be really, really good with a high level summon. But there is also a level where this is generally just value. You know, this is kind of like taking the card with disarm or stun on it. You know, it's like whenever you're against a card that's just like pretty well costed with just generally good abilities on it, the other card's got to be something pretty special to beat it. And this does seem pretty good. And certainly a lot more fun and interesting to play. So from a fun perspective, it's easily this. But I can absolutely see why somebody would be like, well, actually, this is just like pretty viable, right? Level 4. Ooh, camouflage. Hello. All right, camouflage. Attack 2, range 4. If you're adjacent to a wall, but not occupying a corridor tile, very specific, gain invisible. At the end of the round, lose invisible. Oh, no. What did you do to my boy? My beautiful boy, what did you do? Oh no. Okay. I mean, it's 6 initiative when it had to be, right? For this kind of thing. Adjacent to a wall but not occupying a corridor tile. So corridor tiles are basically the little overlay tiles that you usually place to like join 2 rooms up and stuff like that. I don't know if does an open door qualify as a corridor tile, chat? Because it's like open at that point. Can you flip it over and it kind of is? Yes, an open door is a corridor. Okay, so it stops you from like, yeah, so mainly this stops you from just doing like invisible door shenanigans, which I think is interesting considering that invisibility, I mean, I don't know if they're going to go with the new rule from Frosthaven, they're kind of revised invisibility rules, or if they're going to stick to the original rules and maybe just make changes like this to cards to kind of like keep them in check. But a corridor tile could also be a bigger cross section than a 1 tile door. No? Yes. Yeah, it can. Which is like, it can be those 2 hex joining pieces, but they are not very often used. I would guess in terms of simplicity's sake, it's been done this way just so that it basically says you can't do doors. Although I suppose they could have just put not occupying a door tile. I guess that the reason is that because a door tile is no longer a door tile once it is open, which is what the problem was. So it's more of a case of the rules being a little bit weird because they call an open door a corridor when really, yeah, it's a very like, okay, they had to call it corridor to cover that base, like to make sure that that was covered, because a door tile is no longer a door tile once it is opened. So therefore, they had to say corridor tile, otherwise it just wouldn't work. And unfortunately, a slight side effect of that is that there will be a few scenarios with more corridor tiles in that are not doors that you will struggle to use camouflage on. But it's probably like so few and far between that it doesn't really matter. Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like camouflage top, I mean, invisibility is still going to be good for self-preservation reasons. But if you are generally a ranger character at the back of a room, how much self-preservation do you really need? It's a significant nerf to this ability, the invisibility side of it, that I'm not sure how much it's really going to be useful. It's very hard on the invisibility. Like the other thing that you had is you could at least like long rest safely before, but now that you're going to lose the invisibility at the end of the round, you can't even like just use this to set up a long rest. You really are not a fan of how they've approached invisibility nerfs in 2.0 so far. It often feels too much. To me, this is basically like you may as well almost not have invisibility written on this card. Like the amount that this impacts the way that it is played, it basically is pointless. It's pointless outside of the fact of you being able to maybe make yourself safe for a round. For whatever reason. Maybe you're playing like a survive X number of rounds type scenario. That I could see it having some use in. Perhaps if, for example, you ran in the previous round to take a hit for your teammate while they needed to long rest or they needed to do something else. So you just needed to take one for the team and then you need to go invisible and just kind of like get out of there. Next round, sure. But yeah, I mean, I haven't seen many other invisibility cards, but yeah, I haven't seen maybe enough to make a full judgment on it yet. But yeah, this basically may as well not have invisibility on it. So the bottom is move 4. All attacks targeting any summons adjacent to you this round gain disadvantage. I mean, I guess with the ward and everything, if you've got the level 3 summon, it's pretty good. Disadvantage and ward. It's a very good chance it takes hardly any damage, if anything, really. I don't know. Camouflage isn't doing it for me, chat. This is probably one of the first cards that I've seen that I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't really fancy it. Like, it's just... There's like the top is pretty underwhelming and not very exciting, and the bottom it was also just it's just fine. It's nothing but fine. Coated arrows on your next 4 ranged attacks. Add poison, then wound, then immobilized, then disarmed. 1 to each attack. Now that's really good. Any build that you are playing could play coated arrows, and I actually really like this because it's much more thematic to the character too. Like, this is one element of the character that probably felt a little bit like not really there with the original character design. You know, like coated arrows is a absolute like pillar of any kind of like, you know, ranger, rogue, ranged rogue type RPG character build. And it wasn't really there with this character. Maybe because there wasn't enough space. You know, you can't have everything, right? But I do like this idea. And the fact that you can kind of like pick and choose your targets. Like, hey, I'm going to use poison arrows on you. Then I'm going to use a wound maybe on you. Then I'll immobilize this person. Then I'll use disarm. I like the way as well that potentially you could speed this up, right? By drawing those extra attacks from your attack modifier deck. You could be like, okay, and then I get to go again. And then I get to go again. Like, so for example, you could go, right, I'm going to poison you. Then I'm going to draw from my deck. You draw your attack, attack 2, range 5. Great. So now I'm going to attack you again. You're poisoned, so I'm going to get an extra +1 on my attack. And perhaps you've got Doom on them as well, so then you're going to get the benefit from the Doom. And then you're going to get to wound them as well. I mean, like, that's all pretty neat. Like, coated arrows could be really good from that perspective. But also, it could just be fairly decent if you're playing the summons build, because you just kind of go, okay, summons... I want you to go and attack that thing. I'm going to attack it and poison it. Okay, so you attack something, you poison it, and you say your summons, focus on this thing and go and kill it. It's got the poison on there already, so they're going to start getting some extra damage against it straight away. So, like, that, to me, also seems pretty good. Obviously, it works best in the Archer build, but I think it works actually relatively okay in the Summon build, because you do attack. It's not like you don't attack. You can also combine coated arrows with dual shot to progress it more rapidly and splash the CC onto something you aren't trying to kill. Yeah, exactly. So at level 2, you take dual shot. Works really well with that too. Yeah, I think it works really, really nicely with the Archer build, because you can get through these charges very quickly. I guess the thing is, with the Summon build, are you doing 4 ranged attacks per rest? That would be like kind of like the caveat. Because realistically... You need to be getting through... Well, do you? No, maybe not. Maybe it's enough value to just go this, this, and this. But the problem that you have is that this is a top action, right? So one of your sort of turns is going to be playing coated arrows. So that's one, you know, potential attack kind of gone. One turn of potentially attacking with a top gone. Unless we get a bottom attack or something at some point. You know, so, you know, you do something like Relentless Offensive, right? You attack something for 2, range 4, you poison it. Then you grant one of your summons, you attack the +0, and they go and attack that with the poison on it, right? Like, just really cool little value. Like, it works well. The bottom is add +2 attack to all your attacks targeting doomed enemies this round. So just a straight up big old buff to your attacks. Again, works better with the Archer build, but not necessarily terrible for the Summon build either. Or alternatively, like as you guys have said, you could go back and take the other level 3. There's nothing wrong here, I think, with also at level 4 going back and taking Swift Trickery if you took Walking Bastion. I think if you took Swift Trickery at 3, you're probably just going straight into Coated Arrows, I would think. Maybe not. Problem with Camouflage is it just feels... I'm sure it still has applications. I'm sure you can still get some good things going with it, but they have really hurt the invisibility part of it. So much, and it's not like you've got a bad card opposite either. Like Coated Arrows is actually pretty good. So it's not like, oh, okay, well, I guess we take this card because the other card is not really for our build or not very interesting. Coated Arrows is absolutely what you want if you're playing the Archer build. And Camouflage Top is just, yeah, a little bit awkward. And the bottom is for summons. So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe they did Camouflage a bit dirty there as well by putting it opposite, like, quite a good other card to take as well. So, the next one is Felling Swoop. Summon War Raptor. 6 health. Move 5, attack 3, and flying. The bottom is move 5 with jump. I mean, that's an excellent move. If you didn't take Swift Trickery, you kind of got the better move ability anyway here. So, I mean, to be honest, if the only reason on the summon build was to take Swift Trickery because, like, it's a fairly decent top attack and it's a move 5, you kind of get punished almost for that choice at level 5, because then you just like, hey, well, here's the card that kind of does that better and has a summon for you, potentially. I mean, I don't know how I feel about the War Raptor. It's a little bit vanilla for my liking. Move 5 is, like, huge, though. It will always be able to get into something and start attacking something. That is massive. But 6 health, attack 3. I don't know. Like, this is probably the most... Like, a level 5, I don't really know. Like, I don't feel like movement is enough make a summon really viable like this. I feel like you can always kind of like play around with movement, and there are ways you can get around movement as a problem on a summon. So this just to me feels a little bit harsh. I don't think it's, I don't know, I might be wrong, but to me this doesn't seem particularly playable. Because you can change focus, you can have this dive in and out of the back line. Yeah, I suppose so. Like, you do have those abilities and that perk, right, that can allow you to kind of get them to come back again, which is kind of neat. I think I'd have to see it in play to really judge it properly. But to me, like, the 6 health is a major concern here. The move 5 with jump is great, though. Expose. Expose. Okay, gain advantage on your first attack, targeting a doomed enemy each turn, which I believe was that the same? I think it was the same. You don't get advantage all the time. I think you only get I think it's the same, right? All enemies lose invisibility and may no longer gain invisibility. The big difference here is that this is like a higher level, right? Was this like level 3 before or level 4 before? Level 2? Oh, it was level 2? Jesus. Okay. It was level 2, but it is the same. It's 31 instead of 13, but your summons add wound to and gain advantage in all their attacks targeting this enemy. Why would you want that much wound? Yeah, I think it's too much wound for sure. Because like once it's wounded once, like why would you care about wounding it again? Yeah, for sure. Like I guess all it does is it plays around enemies who might have heal abilities, so you can kind of keep applying the wound. The real power level is the advantage here, right? Expose indirectly nerfed because your style changed to more multiple attacks each turn. Yeah, I guess so. I think it's still very good, right? I like the fact that they still kept the invisibility stuff in there too. Like, that was always a really neat part of the card. It's against Night Demons, like, take that, Night Demons, right? I really like it. So it seems incredibly good, but I was busted before, certainly considering it was level 2. Yeah, and the problem was, again, at level 2, and this, to be honest, it's actually kind of almost better for the character to be at a higher level, because the problem was is you got to level 2 and you're like, oh man, all I want is some better non-loss attacks. Oh no, I have to take this cornerstone card of my build at level 2. Like, it was just at a weird place as well. Like you don't really want to be taking it, right? And the thing is that if you're playing like an archer build and you're not playing any summons, then, you know, you've got the hand size to be able to easily burn expose and just have it out and not really worry about it for the rest of the scenario. So, I mean, like, I think in general, what we've seen so far from this character is, I mean, they've made pretty sweeping changes to how it plays, but they have not, I think the important thing is as well, they haven't really like destroyed or completely changed like the build that you may like already with this character. Because like one of the interesting things about this character to me, coming into this, was how do you change a character that actually was a pretty well liked character? Like, there was people enjoyed playing this character. It was some people's favorite character. So, you know, how do you come about changing a character that wasn't maybe necessarily broken. I mean, there are maybe a few cards that were maybe a little bit too strong, and you can see that they've changed a few things. But how do you kind of keep the spirit of the character still there in that build that a lot of people enjoyed, which was the Archer build? That Archer build is still here. It's been changed a little bit, but for the most part, it remains unchanged, just tweaked a little bit, made it a little bit tighter, made it a little bit more interesting, without kind of like, you know, completely going off the rails. So if you enjoyed that way of playing, the good news is you can play, you know, looks like you can probably play a very similar style to what you were playing before, with some slightly different cards that will hopefully actually be more fun to play with than what it was originally. And certainly you won't get off to that really ridiculously slow start that you had at level 1 with just a stupid number of dooms. So that's kind of cool. But what they have managed to do is they've actually managed to give a very strong second identity to the character, which is with the summons as well, which is really good, which has always been kind of like an undercurrent of the character. I really hope the Toad comes back. I mean, we'll look at the level 7 card now, but I really hope the Toad comes back, because that was or is my favorite summon in the entire game. So Charging Beast. Summon Horned Heuristic. Summon Horned Heuristic. Again, sounds kind of maybe like a dinosaur. It's got 7 health, move 3, attack 2. Okay, good start. After moving for the first time each round, add +2 to all attacks for the round. Ooh, that's spicy, right? That's really spicy. Whenever this summon kills an enemy, grant it move +0. Ooh. Ooh, baby. So essentially, I mean, I guess in an ideal world here, like in an ultimate ideal world, this thing will move up to an enemy, attack it for 2 +2 because it's moved, attack it for 4, kill it, then it's going to move again. Then potentially you will combo into your level 2 card, which we saw. Boom. Then you maybe combo it into your level 2 card, Relentless Offensive maybe. It gets it to attack again with the extra buffs. Okay, you can see where this can kind of go a little bit mental, right? Very abusable. Also, you got like this, like the bottom of Relentless Offensive as well. Great burn ability to use with it. That's super cool. Also, you got this, I guess. Wow. Yeah. That's why they're highlighting it there too. The bottom is your summon focuses on this enemy. When this enemy dies, you and all allies may perform a heal for yourself. No range to that either, huh? Get a heal 3, everybody. That's pretty nice as well. I mean, but the thing is, you're going to want to play this pretty early, right? This is like I'm going to turn 1, I'm playing this, profit. Surely. You're like, go straight into this into this on the first turn of the game on 90 initiative, and then you just go straight early. Or maybe you want to go late again. I don't know. Maybe you just go late, just to try and like buy a little bit of time. But I guess the thing is that you want this thing to actually move, so you don't want the enemies to get too close to you. You like doing late, early. Yeah, that makes sense. Late, early would work. That's a very nice card. I mean, it's a level 7. Like you're kind of on the verge here of getting towards kind of like end game kind of thing. When you're at like level 7, level 8, level 9, you're going to be like kind of busted on most characters. You're kind of getting into that busted realms of, yeah, you got a bunch of gold. You've probably bought some enhancements on some cards. You've probably got like, you know, you're probably slotted out with all your gear with pretty decent stuff. So you're probably like on your way out. Just, you can't really like say, oh yeah, this is like a build defining card because this is like a level 7. I think all build defining cards should be like, I don't know, before level 4 or below. What I'm doing might as well be blank most of the time. Can't imagine picking this card and not dropping the top instantly. Yeah, I guess that's the thing. Solid Bow is better healing than Charging Beast. Oh, the heal 2 every time you attack, right? Well, damages. Damages being key there. But shouldn't be too hard to do. Yeah, you can pretty much always get like at least... You could probably get like 4 heal out of that. Pretty reliably. Yeah, really good. Well, Doomstalker looks great, everyone. Looks really, really good. I think in terms of classes so far, I mean, they all look great. They all just look really like, all of the cards look great. It looks like it has a very clear identity now. two very kind of interesting builds that clearly kind of have been worked on. And actually, the trap sub-theme seems to be completely gone, which I think I'm okay with. They've kind of like the Tinkerer's gotten a few more traps. I'll be interested to know if maybe another couple of characters get a few more traps, or maybe the fact that, you know, what exists in Frosthaven exists. Perhaps they thought there was no real need to kind of explore that sub-theme anymore. I mean, I know that kind of sucks for people who maybe want to play Gloomhaven, but, you know, trap builds are what they are. They're niche, and they probably should be kept that way. Am I going to try a summer build? What, if I play this character? Absolutely. I think so. But in terms of, like, classes so far, they're really smashing it, aren't they, really?
I think still, yeah.
Oh,
Scout
that's the blessing from Cameron.
Yeah.
That's the blessing from.
Isaac, at this point, can we get your approval to add an additional attack modifier deck for allies in the digital version?